At a cafe, my ex-husband laughed at me for raising our baby alone, but he froze when he saw the life I built without him. My name is Claire Miller. I'm 27 years old, and I grew up in Ohio. When I was younger, I thought I had everything figured out. I married my college sweetheart, Jason Carter, when we were both still wide-eyed and full of plans. We thought love was enough, and for a while, I believed it was. Not long after, I found out I was pregnant. It wasn't part of the plan, but I felt joy and fear at the same time. Jason hugged me and told me he was happy too. I remember clinging to that moment, believing we were about to start a real family together. I pictured us decorating a little nursery, late-night talks about baby names, and watching our child take their first steps with both of us cheering. But reality turned out very different. When I reached 6 months, Jason's mask slipped. One night, with no warning, he told me the truth. He admitted he had been cheating, that he didn't want to be a father, and that he felt trapped. His words cut into me sharper than any knife. I stood there, stunned, with my hand on my round belly, wondering how he could be so cruel. He didn't even try to soften it. He said he wasn't ready to give up his freedom, that he wanted fun, not responsibility. I begged him to think about what he was doing, to at least try for the baby's sake. But he just looked at me as if I were the problem. He called me boring. He said motherhood would make me a burden. That night, he packed a bag and walked out of our apartment, leaving me alone with swollen ankles, tears on my face, and a baby growing inside me. It was the darkest moment of my life, but also the clearest. I realized no one was going to protect this child except me. Jason made his choice, and I made mine. I chose my daughter. I chose to carry her, love her, and give her the life she deserved, even if I had to do it alone. And that's how my journey began. It happened on a rainy evening. The sound of water hitting the windows filled the silence between us until Jason broke it with sharp words. His face was cold, his voice louder than the storm outside. We had argued before, but this time it felt different. He wasn't just angry. He was done. "You're boring, Claire," he snapped, throwing his hands up as if I were some weight chained to him. "This," he pointed at my stomach, swollen with the baby kicking inside. "This is going to ruin my life." The words knocked the breath out of me. I tried to hold myself together, clutching my belly, whispering that it wasn't true, that we could still make this work. But he had already decided. He went straight to the closet and yanked clothes off the hangers. The suitcase hit the bed with a heavy thud, louder than my heartbeat in my ears. I begged him. My voice cracked, but I didn't care. I told him we were supposed to be a family, that we promised each other forever. I reached out to touch his arm, to pull him back to me, but he pulled away as if my hand burned him. "You chose this," he spat. "You chose motherhood over fun. Don't expect me to throw my life away, because you want to play mom." His words hit harder than the slam of drawers as he shoved his things into the bag. I kept begging, tears running down my face, my chest so tight I could barely breathe. I reminded him of the nights we dreamed about the future, the times he kissed my belly and said he couldn't wait to meet our baby. But he laughed at that memory, like it had all been a joke. The zipper of the suitcase echoed in the small apartment. I stood frozen in the doorway, blocking him without meaning to. My hands clung to my stomach, as if I could shield the baby from hearing his father's cruelty. He didn't stop. He pushed past me, his bag slung over his shoulder. The door opened, letting in a gust of cold air and the smell of wet pavement. For a second, I thought he might look back, that some part of him might soften. But he didn't. He slammed the door shut, and the sound of his footsteps faded down the hall until there was nothing left but silence. I sank to the floor, holding my belly with both hands, sobbing so hard my whole body shook. The apartment that once felt warm now felt empty, like every trace of love had been ripped away with him. The only sound left was my own crying and the faint flutter of life inside me, reminding me that even though he was gone, I was not truly alone. The hospital room was bright, but felt unbearably empty. Machines beeped softly, nurses came and went, and I lay there with pain shooting through my body. Every push drained me. Every cry from my lips felt like the last bit of strength I had left. I told myself to keep going, that I had to do this no matter what. Hours blurred together, and the only thing keeping me steady was the thought of finally holding my baby. When the cry finally came, it was the sweetest sound I had ever heard. The nurse placed a tiny bundle in my arms, wrapped in a soft blanket, her face pink and scrunched up. My heart cracked open in ways I didn't think were possible. I whispered her name, Lily, and kissed her forehead. She was perfect. She was mine. But as I looked around the room, I couldn't ignore what was missing. Jason's chair was empty. There was no hand holding mine, no smile, no "we did it" moment. He never showed up, not even a text, not even a call. While I was bringing his daughter into the world, he was somewhere else, pretending none of this existed. The first nights were the hardest. I hadn't slept properly in days. My body ached, my mind felt heavy, and every cry from Lily jolted me awake. The nurses tried to help, but the truth was that when they left, it was just me and her. I held her through the long hours, rocking her even when my arms felt weak. My eyes burned with exhaustion, but I couldn't put her down. She needed me, and I couldn't let her feel even a moment of being unwanted. Then came the bills. Each envelope that arrived in the mail felt like a new weight on my shoulders. Hospital costs, baby supplies, rent for the apartment I could no longer afford. It piled up faster than I could keep track of. I sat at the kitchen table one night, rocking Lily with one arm while opening bills with the other, tears slipping down my face. I didn't know how I would do it, but I knew I had no choice. She depended on me. Loneliness pressed down on me harder than the exhaustion. The nights were long, the house too quiet except for Lily's cries. Sometimes I would stare at her tiny face and wonder how Jason could walk away from her. But then she would grip my finger with her tiny hand, and it felt like a silent promise between us. I leaned down, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "You will never feel abandoned. Not while I'm here." I knew I couldn't keep living in that apartment, surrounded by memories of him. That's when I thought of my late mother's small house on the edge of town. It wasn't much, just 2 bedrooms, peeling paint, and old furniture. But it was ours. It carried her warmth, her love, and it was a place where I could start over. I packed up what little I had, strapped Lily into her car seat, and drove away from the apartment for the last time. Moving into that tiny house felt like stepping into a new chapter. The floors creaked, the roof leaked when it rained, but it was safe. It was home. As I laid Lily down in the crib I borrowed from a neighbor, I sat beside her and watched her sleep. Her little chest rose and fell, her lips moved as if she was dreaming, and her small fingers curled into fists. In that moment, I didn't feel broken anymore. I felt strong. I had her and she had me, and that was enough to begin again. The morning started before the sun came up. I would tie my hair back, slip into the faded uniform of the diner, and lift Lily into her carrier. She was still so small, her tiny head resting against my chest, her soft breaths warming my skin. I kissed the top of her head and whispered, "Here we go again, baby girl." Then I headed out the door, ready to face another long day. The diner smelled of coffee and grease, the same mix every morning. Plates clattered, the bell above the door never stopped ringing, and I moved from table to table with Lily strapped close to me. Most customers didn't say anything, but I could feel the stares. Some looked at me with pity, others with judgment, as if my baby were proof of a mistake I couldn't hide. I heard the whispers when they thought I was out of earshot. "Poor thing, she's all alone," or "So young, what a shame." Each word stung, but I learned to keep my eyes down and focus on the work. It wasn't easy carrying trays of food while Lily squirmed against me, but I had no choice. I needed the money, and there was no one else to care for her. Some days I felt like collapsing right there on the diner floor, but I kept moving because stopping wasn't an option. The only light in those days was Sarah, one of the waitresses who worked the evening shifts with me. She was older, with kind eyes and a laugh that cut through the noise of the diner. She'd step in when I was overwhelmed, rocking Lily in her arms while I rushed between tables. Sometimes she'd sneak food onto my tray, an extra sandwich or a piece of pie wrapped in foil, telling me to take it home for later. She never made me feel like a burden. She became my friend, the first real support I'd had in a long time. But even as I tried to build something steady, Jason's shadow lingered. Every once in a while, my phone would ring and his name would flash on the screen. For a moment, my heart would leap, foolishly hoping he might ask about Lily or offer help. But it never happened. His calls were only to cut me down. "You really messed up your life," he'd sneer. "Working in a greasy diner, dragging that baby everywhere. Glad I got out when I did." I'd grip the phone tighter, my jaw clenched, fighting back the urge to cry. Sometimes he would go further, bragging about Melissa, the new girlfriend he was so proud of. "She's fun, you know? No strings, no baggage. We can go out whenever we want, do whatever we want. That's what life should be, Claire. Not diapers and bills." His words burned like fire, not just because they were cruel, but because a small part of me believed them. Maybe I was the boring one. Maybe I had trapped myself. The shame and humiliation twisted in my stomach, but then Lily would let out a soft cry, reminding me why I was fighting so hard. I'd look down at her tiny face, her wide eyes staring up at me, and I'd remember. I wasn't just working for me. I was working for her. Each long shift, each ache in my feet, each whisper behind my back. It was all for the chance to give her something better. I swallowed the pain, wiped my eyes when no one was looking, and carried on. No matter what Jason said, no matter how much it hurt, I pushed forward. Because Lily deserved a mother who wouldn't give up. The days at the diner drained me, but when night came, I refused to stop. After I tucked Lily into her little crib, I spread my books across the small kitchen table. The lamp above hummed faintly, casting shadows on the pages. My body ached from hours of rushing between tables, but my mind pushed forward. Numbers filled the margins of my notebooks. Rows of equations I repeated again and again until they finally made sense. Many nights, Lily would stir and begin to cry, her small voice breaking the silence. I would scoop her up, hold her against my chest, and sway back and forth until she calmed. Sometimes I balanced my textbook on one arm while cradling her in the other, whispering formulas and lessons under my breath, as though I were reading her a bedtime story. She didn't understand the words, but the rhythm seemed to soothe her, and in a strange way, it soothed me too. Sleep became a luxury I rarely had. I lived on black coffee and stubbornness, dragging myself to class after shifts, my eyes burning as I tried to keep up with lectures. But every time I thought of giving in, I remembered why I was there. This wasn't just for me, it was for her. Lily deserved more than a mother stuck in endless diner shift. She deserved security, a safe future, and I was determined to give it to her. The first time I passed an exam with a high grade, I almost cried right there in the classroom. My professor smiled when he handed back the paper and told me, "Good work, Claire. Keep this up." Those words, simple as they were, filled me with more pride than I'd felt in years. For once, I wasn't just surviving, I was moving forward. There were more small wins after that. A compliment on a project, a nod of approval during a group exercise. Each one felt like a stone placed beneath my feet, building a path out of the life I had been stuck in. The exhaustion never disappeared, but it stopped feeling pointless. Every sleepless night was proof that I was climbing higher. Back at home, I would write down job listings on scraps of paper, circling ones that mentioned offices, steady hours, and benefits. Even when I doubted myself, even when I thought I wasn't ready, I sent in applications. I told myself that one day someone would see the determination hidden behind my tired eyes and give me a chance. Sometimes I sat by Lily's crib after studying, watching her tiny chest rise and fall. Her little hand would twitch in her sleep, and I'd imagine her future, bright, secure, far away from the chaos her father left behind. I leaned close and whispered promises she couldn't yet understand. Promises that I would never stop fighting for us, that every sacrifice was for her. I knew the road ahead was long, but the weight of it didn't scare me anymore. Each late night, each page of notes, each quiet victory was shaping me into someone stronger than I had ever been. And for the first time in a long while, I believed that better days were not just a dream. They were waiting for us, just beyond the next step. When the call finally came, I almost didn't believe it. The woman on the other end told me I had been chosen for the office assistant position I'd interviewed for the week before. I sat there in silence for a moment, clutching the phone tightly, waiting for her to take it back, but she didn't. It was real. I had a job that wasn't behind a counter or balancing trays. I whispered thank you again and again, my voice trembling, before hanging up. Then I picked up Lily, kissed her soft cheek, and whispered, "We did it, baby girl." The first days in the office felt strange. The smell of paper and ink replaced the greasy scent of the diner. Instead of rushing between tables with heavy trays, I sat at a desk, sorting files, answering phones, and typing letters. The work wasn't easy, but it was steady, predictable. At the end of each week, I received a paycheck that didn't vanish the moment it touched my hand. For the first time since Lily was born, I could breathe without the constant fear of drowning in bills. With the extra money, I started piecing together a real home. On weekends, I visited thrift shops and secondhand stores, searching through rows of worn furniture. I brought home a small wooden table with scratches along its legs, a faded armchair that still held its shape, and shelves to hold Lily's toys. Each item might have been old to someone else, but to us, it was new. I dressed Lily in soft baby clothes I found at bargain shops, folding them neatly in a drawer as if they were treasures. The house slowly transformed. The bare walls gained color from cheap prints I picked up at flea markets. The empty corners filled with secondhand furniture, cleaned and polished until they shined. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Every night, when I tucked Lily into bed, I looked around the little home and felt warmth settle in my chest. Lily grew quickly, her laughter ringing through the rooms like music. Each smile she gave me erased the heaviness of the past. When she clapped her tiny hands, when she babbled nonsense that only she understood, I felt a strength rise inside me. She became my fuel, my reminder of why I kept moving forward. Every late night I had spent studying, every tear shed in exhaustion, felt worth it when I saw her bright eyes light up. At work, I started walking with my head a little higher. My boss noticed my effort and sometimes praised me for being reliable and organized. Coworkers stopped seeing me as just the tired girl with a baby and started treating me as part of the team. Little by little, my confidence grew. I wasn't the abandoned wife hiding in the shadows anymore. I was Claire Miller, someone rebuilding, someone capable. One evening, I sat at the kitchen table, watching Lily play with blocks on the floor. The glow from the lamp cast a soft light over her, and her laughter filled the air. I leaned back in the chair and let myself smile. For the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving. I could see the outline of a future taking shape: steady work, a safe home, and a little girl who gave every sacrifice meaning. It wasn't everything yet, but it was enough to keep believing in what was ahead. The rain was coming down in heavy sheets, cold drops soaking through my coat as I hurried along the street with Lily in my arms. She was bundled tight against me, her tiny breaths warming my chest. When I spotted a cafe glowing with light, I pushed inside, grateful for the shelter and the smell of fresh coffee that wrapped around us. I shook the rain from my hair, shifting Lily's blanket, and that's when I froze. At a table near the window sat Jason. Beside him was one of his old friends, laughing over their cups like they didn't have a care in the world. My chest tightened, but I couldn't turn around. Lily stirred softly, so I adjusted her and walked toward the counter. Jason's eyes locked on me right away. That familiar smirk spread across his face, slow and cruel. He raised his voice just enough for everyone nearby to hear. "Well, look who it is. Still dragging that kid everywhere? Must be exhausting being a single mom." His friend chuckled, shaking his head as if Jason had just told the best joke of the day. The sound made my skin prickle, and for a moment I felt every person in the cafe glance in my direction. My cheeks burned, but I stayed still, my arms wrapped firmly around Lily. Jason leaned back in his chair, clearly enjoying himself. He looked me up and down, his grin widening. His friend muttered something under his breath, and the two of them laughed again, the noise sharp and mocking. Each laugh felt like a spotlight, exposing me in the middle of that room. I pressed my lips together, bouncing Lily gently against me. She gave a small whimper, her hand clutching my shirt, and I whispered to her softly. My heart pounded, but I kept my face calm, refusing to let them see me break. Jason's smirk didn't fade, and his friend kept snickering at his side, but I focused only on the warmth of Lily in my arms. Their voices grew faint behind the steady rhythm of her breathing. I didn't answer, didn't give them the reaction they wanted. The laughter at their table lingered, but I stood tall, rocking my daughter gently, holding on to the quiet strength inside me. Jason leaned back in his chair, stretching like a man without a care in the world. His voice carried across the cafe, sharp enough for me to hear over the chatter. "You know, Claire," he said loudly, "some of us actually enjoy life. Going out whenever we want, no diapers, no crying, no boring nights at home. That's what freedom looks like." His friend, seated beside him, laughed and nodded in agreement. "Man, you got it good. She's the one stuck with all the hard stuff." The two of them chuckled, glancing at me as if my life were some kind of joke. I stayed quiet, adjusting Lily in my arms, rocking her gently as she nestled closer against me. The sting of their words pressed at me, but I held myself steady. Then the cafe door opened, and the bell above rang out. A familiar voice called across the room. "Claire, hey, there you are." I turned and saw David, one of my co-workers from the firm. He walked over with a big smile, holding a coffee cup in one hand. "Congrats again on your promotion," he said warmly. "You've been working so hard, you deserve it." The whole cafe seemed to pause for a moment. Jason's grin froze on his face, the laughter cut short. His friend, who had been so quick to laugh at me a moment ago, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He cleared his throat, suddenly focused on the table in front of him. I smiled back at David, thanking him, my voice calm and steady. Lily shifted softly in my arms, and I held her close, feeling her tiny heartbeat against mine. Jason stared at me, his expression no longer smug but clouded with something else: confusion, disbelief, maybe even regret. He had expected me to look tired, broken, weighed down by struggle. Instead, he was faced with something he hadn't imagined: me standing tall, holding our child, and being recognized for success he never believed I could achieve. His friend avoided my eyes, the earlier mocking grin gone. The silence at their table felt heavier than all the cruel words they had spoken before. I didn't need to argue or defend myself. The truth was already clear in Jason's face. He had walked away thinking I would fall apart, but now he saw me standing stronger than ever, with a life I had built on my own. I felt Jason's eyes on me as David walked away, leaving behind the weight of his words. The air around the table was heavy. Jason shifted in his seat, trying to collect himself, but the smirk that had come so easily before was gone. His friend glanced at him, waiting for him to say something, but Jason seemed unsure. Finally, he leaned forward, clearing his throat, forcing a casual tone. "So, you're doing okay then?" The words sounded awkward, thin, like he couldn't quite believe what he was saying. I adjusted Lily in my arms, her tiny head resting against my shoulder. My voice was steady, not loud, but clear enough for everyone at the table to hear. "Better than okay," I said. "Claire Miller, junior accountant at West & Company." I let the title sit there, simple and true. It wasn't grand, but it was mine, and I had earned it. Jason blinked, his mouth opening as if he wanted to respond, but no words came. His friend shifted uncomfortably, fiddling with his cup. I could see the surprise written across their faces. They had expected to see a woman barely hanging on, but instead, they saw someone standing tall with her baby safe in her arms. Jason tried again, forcing a half smile. Well, that's good. I mean, I guess things worked out for you. His tone was strained, every word an effort to sound in control, but the cracks were showing. I looked him straight in the eye, my grip on Lily firm but gentle. Things didn't just work out, I said calmly. Lily has a mother who shows up for her. That's all she needs. The words left my mouth with quiet strength, not meant as an attack, but as the truth. Jason's smile faltered completely, his face tightening as though I had struck him. His friend glanced at him, then back at me, but said nothing. The silence that followed felt louder than all of Jason's earlier laughter. Jason leaned back in his chair, speechless, his eyes darting away from mine. For once, he had nothing to throw at me, no cruel joke, no mocking remark. His friend tapped his fingers nervously on the table, avoiding my gaze. Around us, the cafe carried on, but in that corner, everything had shifted. I stood there, Lily snug against me, her small breaths warm on my neck. I didn't need to say more. The truth was plain enough. Jason had left, expecting me to crumble, and yet here I was, stronger, steady, with a life that didn't include him. He had abandoned his daughter, and everyone in that cafe could see it. Jason stayed frozen in his seat, his confidence gone, exposed in front of his friend as the man who walked away from everything that truly mattered. Claire leaves the cafe holding Lily, her heart full. The door closes behind her, and she feels a calm she hasn't felt in years. For the first time, she isn't weighed down by anger or sadness. She knows she has nothing to prove anymore. Inside, Jason is left sitting in silence, but Claire doesn't turn back to see it. She doesn't need to. She knows the look on his face, knows the shock in his eyes when he realized the truth. That moment will stay with him, not with her. Her life has already answered every insult, every laugh, every doubt he ever threw at her. She steps forward, steady and certain. Lily rests quietly against her, and Claire feels warmth in her chest. This little girl is the reason she kept going when it felt impossible. She doesn't think about the struggles now, only about how far she has come. Each step away from the cafe feels like a step into the future she created on her own. Jason watches from the window, frozen. His friend shifts uncomfortably at the table, but Jason says nothing. He can't. Claire's confidence has stripped him of words. He once thought she would always be the one left behind, but now he sees she is the one moving forward. Claire doesn't let her thoughts wander back to him. He chose his path, and she chose hers. What matters is that she built something real, something strong, something lasting. She doesn't need his approval, his help, or his presence. She never did. As she walks on, Lily stirs slightly, and Claire lowers her head to press a gentle kiss to her daughter's hair. Her smile is soft, but it carries a strength Jason will never understand. She whispers, "We're going to be just fine, baby girl," her voice steady and sure. With that, she keeps walking, her steps firm. The cafe fades behind her, along with the man who once made her feel small. Now, she carries herself with quiet pride, knowing the life she built speaks louder than any revenge could. The world ahead feels wide open, waiting for her and Lily, and she doesn't look back. If you were Claire, would you ever forgive Jason or keep moving forward without looking back? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoy emotional stories like this, don't forget to subscribe, like, and turn on notifications so you never miss one.